me get my tissue ready. Hopefully I got all my cries out yesterday. Let's see if I can get through this today without too much crying. Again, my name is Lucinda Pennington. I grew up my whole life in the system, CPS system. I was abandoned at 3 days old. I'm just going to recap real quick. I've been in and out of foster care my whole life. Some of my foster homes were repeated foster homes where I had been moved out and then moved back in on several occasions, but just a little different dynamics because they had different kids and different caseworkers. I believe I left off yesterday with one of the foster homes where my first aunt had taken me back, kidnapped me in the middle of the night, thought she was helping me, but didn't know that her own daughter was abusing me. And it was taken back. I was taken back. And hey, Christina, thank you for joining me this morning. Anyways, so CPS, I know it's called different in different states. Here in Missouri, it's called DSS. In the state of Maine, it was DFS. A lot of people I see refer it to CPS. So I probably will refer to it as DFS because that's what I'm used to. But anyways, I ended up going back after staying a little bit of time with my dad and then going back and forth until DFS decided to put me back into my second foster home that I had been sold to, as far as I'm concerned, with CPS. Ooh, you're just a state away? We gotta get together, girl. Okay, so, in this home, I don't know what it is with foster homes, but all of the foster homes that I lived in, it didn't seem to matter. The foster children were treated different than their own children. And I understand that you have your own children and you don't want your own children to feel like they're not loved, or you're taking in a perfect stranger and you're not. I get that. I get parents who don't want to do that. But here's the thing. If your foster kids are acting out, there's a reason. And a lot of times it's just because you're not making them feel welcome. And I'm going to give you an example that I had a couple years ago. We had an evangelist preacher come to our church, and he had had this foster child since he was like 2 years old, and this little kiddo was like 7 now. And he was bragging about being a foster parent, right? And when he introduced his family, he said, "This is my wife, my son, my daughter, and my foster child," right? So when you say foster child to everybody in the whole audience, you know what that kid is hearing? I don't belong, okay? And then during his sermon, he had mentioned that the foster kid would be in the middle of a family game and misbehave just out of the blue. Just, would knock the game over, go in his room and cry. And there were times that he just would have meltdowns and he couldn't understand it, and all he could do is pray for him. And of course I'm taking notes, because what better way to help him than somebody who could kind of give him a little insight of perhaps what this little kid is thinking. So after the sermon, and of course my husband's looking at my notes going, "No, don't talk to him." But I was like, I know exactly what's wrong with this kiddo. So after the sermon, I pulled the evangelist aside and I said, "Can I talk to you about your behavioral problems with your foster child?" And I explained to him a little bit of what I do. I work with foster children. I said, "But I used to be a foster kid my whole life. My whole life. I was in the care of DFS till I was 21 years old. I even actually had to get permission to get married." So, I told him, I said, you're not making him feel welcome. I said, you said in your sermon that he won't even call you mom and dad, and he's been living with you since he was 2. He's 7 now. So he's been living with him for a little over 5 years, right? Because he was going to have an 8th birthday coming up. And I said, the reason he doesn't call you mom and dad, because you don't call him your son. You still refer to him as my foster son. And what he's hearing is, I don't belong, and if I mess up, I'm not responsible for him because he's not mine. That's what he's hearing. No, that's not what you're saying, but that's what a foster kid feels when you say that. And so I said, if you want his behaviors to change and you want him to see you differently, then when you introduce your family as, this is my wife, my son, my daughter, my son. And don't talk about him in your sermons like he's an outsider. I said, don't use him like that in your sermons. He's sitting in the audience. That's not okay, right? And so I suggested to him to change that. So I get a letter probably, because I gave him my information that if he ever had any questions or concerns that he could call me. So he sends me a letter probably a couple months later. I got a letter in the mail from this family. And the foster dad was like, you were right. Absolutely right. We've had no meltdowns. I took your advice. And the very next time that we had a speaking engagement, I introduced him as my son. I never spoke to anybody that he was my foster child. And on the way home that day, he asked if he could call them mom and dad. And, of course, they were like, yes, of course you can. Why? Because he finally felt like he belonged. Okay? This was a good foster home. He loved his foster parents. He wasn't being abused. He loved his foster parents. And he quit having outbursts. Why? Because he finally, after 5 years, didn't feel like the outsider anymore. And for this foster home to see that and willing to take constructive criticism to help this child, when a child is having behaviors, people, there's a reason. And the reason a lot of times is because they don't know how to express themselves and they want somebody to intervene. But unfortunately, we're not mind readers. We don't know how to mind read. And us as children expect the adults to start asking questions. Why are you acting this way? And when a child says, I don't know, they do know. The thing is, they don't know how to express it. And they're worried that they'll get in trouble even more. So, my thing is, foster care, I have a lot of torn feelings about it. The thing is, as a parent aid company, I did shut down 5 foster homes in 20 months. That wasn't very popular about that, but here's the thing, I would do it again. The thing is, foster parents, we're not going to take children out of an abusive situation with the parents and then turn around and put them in another abusive situation with foster parents. A lot of foster parents just do it for the money, and I don't shut them down just because if they do it for the money, but if they're neglecting the children or mistreating the children, I've seen children where they were separating their french fries and evenly sharing them. That's a sign of abuse. That means they're starving and they want equal share. I mean, there's different things that I look for. Children don't have to say anything. There's certain things that I look for that I know the signs of child abuse. So growing up in foster care, remember I told you yesterday, there is a happy ending. I know what I was sharing was very traumatizing to some people, and I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to traumatize people, but I just shared the very tip of the ice of the things that I've suffered.
in foster homes. Let me put it this way. My body is damaged because of the treatment I received in foster care. My heart is actually, the left side of my heart is actually fused to the wall of my chest because of abuse. I had a lady that would sit on my chest with a chair. The chair leg would press against my heart and my chest. And for sitting on it for so long and for hours where I could barely breathe because it was so painful, it actually fused my heart to the wall of my chest because of the abuse. And so, I mean, my body has had a lot of pain. I've probably had every bone in my body broken at some point or another. And I suffered a lot of pain physically, where I wouldn't tell anybody that I was hurting because I was scared of the consequences. And I knew that they wouldn't take me to the hospital when I got beatings with things that would puncture my body. And it's amazing that I didn't die on some of those wounds and sores that I had. But I have a very high tolerance for pain, probably too high of a tolerance. But here's the thing. I didn't let my past define me. When I told you, I believe on my second video about Hephzibah House, the 3 years I spent at Hephzibah House. And the girls that were coming to Hephzibah House were very, they scared me. I'm sorry, but they scared me. They were very loud and demanding, and I'm not going to do this. And I mean, they were very rebellious girls and defied authority, and it scared the crap out of me. I'd never seen such defiance because I had always been the quiet, meek, if somebody told you to do something, it was yes, ma'am. That was my attitude. These girls, they tell them to do something, it was like, you can't tell me what to do, I'm going to... And I was just like, oh my God, they're going to get a beating, they're going to... But they didn't. That's not how Hephzibah House was. And of course, you know, Hephzibah House, several times the staff would notice that when these girls would start that defiance, I would go and hide in the corner. Why? Because I expected them to get a beating. Because that's what I was used to. And they were like, why are you hiding? And I was like, aren't you going to beat her? Yeah, like, we don't do that here, sweetheart. And so I finally realized I was in a place that wasn't going to beat the crap out of everybody every time that they was defiant. And I'd never seen that kind of behavior because I never acted that way. I was not a defiant child. I never did anything against my authority. And I was yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. I mean, I never defied authority. Absolutely was terrified of authority. And that's, you know, I shouldn't feel afraid of my authority, everybody that was in authority over me. But that's a lot of foster children are. And those that are defiant and act out are screaming for help. Okay? So, find out the reasons why. Allow your children to talk. Let them know that there's nothing that they can tell you would make you want to punish them in any way. And that you're able to be the buffer between whatever it is that they're hurting from. And it could be a bully at school. It could be anybody in your life. So if you're struggling with behaviors with your children, you know, instant message me. I might be able to help you, work you through that. But there's always a symptom, and the symptom is misbehavior, but there's always something causing that misbehavior. They're not just being defiant to be defiant. There's something behind it. And so if you struggle with behaviors, I worked 12 years in juvenile facilities, and I could work a shift with 12 juvenile boys and not have one incident. Why? Because I knew the behaviors, and I would circle it up and I'd say, hey, I see that you're really stressed right now. What's going on? And being able to give them the opportunity to voice and speak and say, hey, it's okay if you're feeling upset right now. Why are you feeling upset? This person's making me uncomfortable. Why is this person making you feel uncomfortable? And be able to talk about things. That's important, and that's a key. So, and I know I'm just trying to get through this. I just know if I start talking about the abuse, I'll just start crying against people. But in the different foster homes that I was in, the sexual abuse, the mental abuse, the night terrors, I still as an adult suffer when I'm very, very stressed. Very stressed. I still suffer from night terrors. My poor husband, he has found me wandering the streets in my night clothes with night terrors. My poor husband has gotten several black eyes from me beating the tar out of him trying to protect myself. Night terrors are a real thing. And usually when people are having night terrors, they're really struggling emotionally. That's more of an emotional fear. Goes and spills over into their sleep. So there's always different things that will, like I said, behaviors. There's always behaviors. There's always different things that cause children to misbehave. Thank you, Miss Christina. I really appreciate you watching. I can't see the messages only because I don't have my glasses on. I'm an old lady, and I'd have to put my glasses on. But I promise you, I will read everything that you're saying. And I really appreciate it. I hope my story gets out there because I want to help people. And I'm no longer a parent aid company because CPS doesn't like the fact that I actually help families and children. They don't like the fact that I put children first, and that in every case that I ever had, I was honest with the parents. I would tell them whether or not my recommendation was whether or not the children should return to them or not. And I know that's against every grain of everybody that fights CPS. How dare you not think that every child deserves to be with their parent? But trust me, in the 76 cases that I had, there were some cases where the parents were the ones that were the abusers or the neglectors or the person who didn't care anything about but themselves. And all they wanted to do was do drugs, live on the street, be a gangster or whatever, and hurt their children. And I'm not for that. And the foster homes that they were in were good foster homes. And I know that's hard. That was really hard for me. Don't think it wasn't. The first time after I was married and I had somebody come up to me and tell me they were a foster parent, you know, it was all I could do not to punch them in the face. Because my first reaction was, oh my goodness, you're a foster parent? I just want to beat the crap out of you. Why? Because every single foster home that I was in was abusive. Every foster home. So my first instinct was, you're a bad person. You're a foster parent, you're a bad, bad person. And because I had had such a bad experience about it. So my first reaction when somebody would tell me they were a foster parent was, you're a terrible person and I hate you. And my husband is the best man on this planet. Okay, I've been married 25 years, soon to be 25 years. I have 6 children. My oldest is 23. My youngest is 3. So, and I have 5 daughters and a son, Grace, Hope, Faith, Charity, Serenity, and Stephen Jr. And I have a beautiful family and a beautiful, beautiful home. And I have a husband who's very understanding. He said when he married me, I was like a lost kitten. And I've changed a lot. I learned a lot with my husband. And throughout our marriage and different things that learning as a parent, I was like, well, let's just do this. This is how you learn not to pee in the bed. And I thought it was normal because I thought that, okay, I'm going to share this. It's in my book. They meant it for evil. I did share this in my book. When I was pregnant, I believe with my second child, my oldest daughter was still wetting the bed. And we had put pull-ups on her at night, and she didn't want to wear pull-ups, and so in the middle of the night she'd take her pull-up off, and then she'd wet the bed. And I was like, well, what are we going to do to keep her from wetting the bed? You know, we can get her up. And my husband's like, well, we'll have to just set the alarm, get up. And I said, no, let's just do what they did to me. And my husband's like, okay, well, what did they do to you to help you stop wetting the bed? Right? And because of my past, I thought this was, I had to learn, okay? And I was like, well, when I was a little girl and they wanted me to stop wetting the bed, I wet the bed, and they made me sleep in front of the toilet at night. And when anybody had to go to the bathroom at night, they would pee on me, and then they would send me to school with my pissed clothes, and I would get made fun of at school, and that made me stop wetting my bed. I had to do that for a week. I had to sleep in front of the toilet, and they would pee on me in the middle of the night, and I would get so bullied and abused at school that I quit wetting the bed. And my husband looked at me and like, oh my God, no, that is not how we're going to teach our daughter not to pee the bed. And I was like, well, how are we going to do it then? Because I don't know how. And he goes, well, honey, from now on, I want you to run by me anything that you think is a parental punishment. And instead of making me feel like a horrible person for even suggesting it, he realized that I had suffered so much that the norm was not the norm. Does that make sense? And so being able to talk to my husband about different things, and I don't spank my children. Have they ever been spanked? I think maybe 3 times when they were real little, and that was for biting. When my oldest drew blood, I mean, she would not let go, and the only way I could get her to let go was to pop her on the butt. And when I popped her on the butt, she cried, and when she cried, her teeth let go of my arm. But, you know, it wasn't like we beat our children or spanked them, or I never did time out. The way I handle my children were different. I'm not a screamer, I'm not a yeller, I've never been a screamer or a yeller. I discipline in different ways. You have a potty mouth, you're going to clean the toilet. You got, you know, clean up your own room, or you know, there's consequences. I believe in natural consequences. And so my husband and I, we didn't spank, we didn't yell at our children, scream at our children, but we have some really good girls. My son, who's autistic, he's 3, he's never been hit, never been spanked. We don't say, when we say no, we hug him real tight. And the people at the autistic school are amazed that he's the first autistic little boy that they've ever had who doesn't hit when he doesn't want something, or when he's angry or upset. He doesn't hit. And I told him, I said, it's because he's never been hit, and he had better ever never be hit. So over the years, the struggles, the understanding that not every single foster home is a wicked, evil foster home. Don't get me wrong. I have been a part of seeing beautiful adoptions. I've seen being able to be a part of that. But now that I've lost my contract with CPS because I turned 9 TPRs, which is terminating parental rights, to reunifications, and I would close cases. I had a 96% success rate in closing cases. And those cases were open just for money, plain and simple, and the parents wouldn't terminate their rights. And the caseworkers, they liked me because I was closing cases. See, they pit guardian ad litems and lawyers and the caseworkers against each other by the incentives that they have. Okay, so the caseworkers don't get an incentive if the child gets adopted. The guardian ad litems and the lawyers, and I believe the judges sometimes, depending on which state they're in, get an incentive for every child that gets adopted out of the system. Now, I know in this state, it's $4,000 per guardian ad litem, or it may be a little bit more if they are deemed disabled. So that's why guardian items got so mad when TPRs were turned to reunification, because that meant that they couldn't adopt the child out. That means the child were going to be returned to the parents. So I really upset the boat. And when those false allegations came out against my company by a disgruntled employee, not an employee, they're independent contractors. Got to get the lingo right. And by a guardian item that got so angry at my parent aid for helping this young mom get her child back. We helped her get her GED, go back to school. She was graduating from hair school. We got her into her own apartment. We taught her how to drive, get her license. I mean, we helped this mom become self-sufficient. She had stayed clean for over 2 years, not touched a drug, made sure she did all her drug drops. We helped her document everything on her app on her phone and taught her how to document, because I told her, I said, when you go into that courtroom, you're going to have the guardian item and the caseworkers work against you, saying that you didn't do your services and stuff like that. Don't let them be able to do that by providing your own documentation that you went. I teach them how to do all that, and the judge will listen. The judges I know I see a lot of people that complain about the judges being corrupt and stuff like that. The few judges that I've worked with here in the state of Missouri, I absolutely love them, because as long as the parents were doing right and we had proof of the parents doing what they were supposed to do, he would chew out the guardian items. He would chew out or she, because I had another judge that was a woman judge. They had a lot of respect for me because I was there to actually truly help the families. The guardian items and the caseworkers will tell you, we're here to help you. No, they're not. I'm sorry, but I've seen it over and over and over again. I've seen them forge documents. I had one case where the actual supervisor wrote the report for the courtroom because the caseworker refused to lie on the report. And because she refused to lie on the report, the supervisor wrote the report and then forged my document that I submitted to the court by removing things in my document, which she didn't already know. I had already emailed the judge, the lawyers, the guardian items, everybody, my original report, because I knew she was going to change my report, and lied on the stand 3 times. The judge actually fired her off this case, but they refused to step down. CPS refused to step down. Never fired this woman, because why? She's doing her job. No, she wasn't. She was lying, forging documents, lied on the stand. And it was proven that she lied. And she's still a supervisor for CPS. How is that possible? But yet I lose my contract because I expose truth. I expose what they're doing. They don't like that. For 10 months they investigated me. Not one family said I did anything wrong. Now, and I'm pretty sure in their investigation they referred to all parent aid companies as the same. But we were very different. We were a very different parent aid company. But they threatened families. If I had parents calling me up saying, I went to this stupid interview, I was tricked to come to this interview, I thought it was a bank. They told me I need to come in and check my signatures. Stupid stuff. The accusation was I forged parents' signatures and sold their hours that they got to see their kids to them. How ridiculous is that? I'm all about accountability. I would never do something like that. That is just outrageous. And my independent contractors, if they had done that, I wouldn't have known. And so, just stupid stuff like that. And so after 10 months of waiting to find out why I wasn't working those cases, to try and find out what's going on, I did something really stupid, wasn't thinking it through, and I was like, going into the Lion's Den Facebook, pray for me, and I took a snapshot of the files that I was requested to bring in, and I brought in those files, but I didn't think it through. And usually I'm pretty good about thinking about future consequences, because I teach people that. Think things through. But I was so emotional and upset that morning, that they thought that they were going to get one over on me by requesting all these files and documents, and thought I wouldn't have them. When I have everything, I keep everything accountable. And I'm like, took a picture of it, pray for me, and didn't think twice about it. And you could see like initials and last names and stuff like that when you really, really zero in on the files. And I didn't think about that. And I took the picture far away just so that you couldn't see the names on the file. But me, stupid me, wasn't thinking about all this stupid technology that our phones have where you can zoom in on a picture. And so because they could see last names on my files, that's a breach of my contract. And so that's how they took my contract, is based on that photo on Facebook. And so that was my fault. And so it broke my heart, because all of this fight I had done, I made a simple mistake, and it cost me everything. I lost my business as a parenting company, and I lost being able to help families. So I prayed really hard. I said, how can I help these families? And so now I'm an advocate. I'm also a consulting firm where I can, parents will help me, call me up, ask how I can help them on their cases. And that, my friend, is why I do what I do. I'm a full believer that God never gives us more than we can handle. I, for years, asked God, why? Why do I have to suffer so much? Why do I have to go through so much pain? Why did I not have any family that loved me? Why didn't I have a mom and dad that loved me? I still don't have parents. I don't have grandparents. I don't have family. I have nobody. All I have is my husband and my children. My family won't have anything to do with me because I won't be silent about my abuse. The thing is, people, they're not going to shut me up. They're not going to. They're not going to keep me from helping families. It is such a corrupt organization. CPS, I'm sorry. Yes, you are a necessity in this culture of abuse. But when you are forging documents, when you are lying on the stand, when you are purposely allowing families who cannot get along to file false allegations, you're not hurting anybody but these children. These moms and dads who are fighting and accusing each other and nitpick each other to death. CPS is sitting on the sidelines going, yes, fight, fight, fight. Why? Because that's a kid we can take from you. Because when we're done taking him from the mom, we're going to say the dad can't have him either because he can't get along and he doesn't put his best interest of the children at heart, and we're going to take him from him too. So you parents who are fighting, you loved each other enough to make the baby, make this child. Get along for the child. You may not want to live together. You may not want to say, face to face with each other because you are children, still acting like children and cannot get along and want to tit for tat, I hate you kind of attitude. You can hate each other all you want, but you brought an innocent child in this world that deserves to have both parents in their life. They weren't asked to be brought into this world. They deserve to have both parents in their life, not fighting against each other, not sitting there going, well, you're daddy and you're mommy and making the child pick between a father and a mother because you guys can't get along. That is not fair to the children that you brought into this world. So suck it up, Nancy's, and get your life together, but put your child first. If you are so selfish that you can only think of yourself, then put that child up for adoption and go duke it out. But you guys have got to stop fighting and stop causing CPS to come into your lives by, oh, he touched my son, or he did this. And it's false allegations, plain and simple, but you are like, oh, I'm going to make sure he can't get the kid. You're hurting your children. Stop it. Absolutely stop it. I'm sorry, that's a rampage. I get on with parents all the time. Stop it. Stop it. You are wrong. Stop it. These families that fight tit for tat. Oh, I'm going to get you. I'm going to fix you. Stop it. You're only hurting your child. You can't say you love your child and do that kind of behavior. I don't believe you. And the problem is, I would never lie to families. I had families that couldn't even stand to be in the same room, and I brought them all together. Why? Because it wasn't about them. It's about the child that's in CPS, that doesn't deserve to be in CPS, that doesn't deserve to have to move to foster home, to foster home, to foster home, and end up getting abused. That's not okay, people. Don't think that just because you're taking them away from your ex-husband or your ex-wife and they go into foster care for a year that, oh, it's going to be okay. No, you're traumatizing your children. Stop using CPS. Stop making false allegations and allowing CPS to be a part of these children's lives. Stop it. If you need a mediator to mediate between you and your ex or whatever, call me up, okay? Stop putting your children's lives in jeopardy because you can't get along, because you can't grow up, people. I'm sorry, I'm on a tangent. But anyways, it's better than crying, right? So anyway, so I'm an advocate for families. I'm an advocate for children who deserve to have both parents in their lives if they're good parents. And if you are abusive, absolutely, I'm not for abuse. But people, we have to make a change. We have to make CPS accountable. The problem is they investigate themselves. Now, don't think I didn't file a complaint against this supervisor who lied and cheated on the stand. Not cheated, but forged on the stand. I've caught other caseworkers forging documents and reported them. Do you think they do anything about it? No. And when I ask about it later after filing a complaint, it was, well, it's an internal affair. Thank you for reporting it and letting us know, but we'll take it from here. In other words, oh my God, she caught us, guys. We got to do better. Okay? And they just get better at their jobs. And when they're allowed to investigate themselves, I believe that we need to pray and get the president's ear and open up an actual task force against every single state that has CPS or DSS, which I believe every state has it, and have an accountability company for parents who that every case has to go before them to make sure that CPS is not using it as a money source. And then any incentives for adoptions and stuff like that need to be off the table, because that is causing the problems with the forged documents and stuff. Parents, stop using drugs. It's not legal. Stop using it. If you need help, go get help. Stop it. You want to go use drugs, then go use drugs and put your children up for adoption. Again, stop this. Stop it. You know why CPS got such a hold on families? Because families don't put families first. People, we need to rise up. It's not just us. We're not just white trash. We have middle class, the rich, and the poor. I'm sorry, but I fall in the poor category. I have 6 broken teeth right now that I can't afford to go get fixed because I don't have dental insurance, and I suffer daily with my teeth being broken. I never got the dental treatment as a child, and I suffer from I have broken teeth. I've got 6 broken teeth. I've struggled my whole life because they didn't give me dental treatment like they were supposed to, and dental work is expensive. I don't have money. I've got to put food on my table. I've got to put gas in my car. And so, yeah, I'm used to pain. I'm used to having to, if you notice, I touch my mouth a lot. It's because my teeth hurt. My teeth are constantly hurting. Again, I'm on another rabbit trail. At least I didn't cry this morning. I feel a little better that I didn't cry. But people, I want to help people. I've started, so they shut me down as a parent aid company. So I'm going to start up, and I know I'm going to make mistakes. I made a mistake yesterday. I was terrified of going in, and I didn't want to put my name on the paper, so I put my middle name and my last name, because I'm terrified of DFS. I really am. I'm terrified of him. And I should be terrified, people. I shouldn't be afraid of a government agency who literally, they can retaliate against you by false allegations. That is not how it should be, people. That is not how it should work. They should be held accountable. They should be not allowed to do that kind of behavior. But they do. Unfortunately, they do. And it's wickedness. It's wrong. It shouldn't happen, but it does. And so, unfortunately, I've seen so many tales of people who have spoken out against CPS and they end up dead. Yes, and then I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but it's just kind of interesting that things like that happen. So, I love what I do. Sometimes it's very emotional. I was very emotional all day yesterday. It's hard for me to share my story. It's very difficult. That's why I put it in a book. And the story behind that, I wasn't intending to be published. I'm not self-published. I was contracted to publish books. Now, I was actually contracted to publish a third book, but the publishing company went out of business. I had it patented, or they had reserved the title for me on my third book. My first and second book have already been published, but my third book was What to Expect When You're Expecting Foster Kids, to help people with children that have behavioral problems, because a lot of times in the juvenile group homes, I was right on the money every single time on what was this child going through. And they didn't have to tell me. And the staff would be like, oh no, you're no mind reader, you don't know what's going on, you don't know what happened to him, and all this stuff. And I said, okay, we'll see, because eventually he'll share, or he'll feel comfortable enough to tell somebody what's going on. And so, sure enough, I was right every time. And no, I don't have a magic crystal ball, but when you live and breathe abuse for 19 years, people, I suffered in homes. 19 years I suffered. I suffered church abuse. I suffered mental abuse. I suffered sexual abuse. I was so tore up internally that the doctors told me before I got married I would never have children. That devastated me, to be told I would never have children. And so I prayed to God, and I said, please don't let this be something that I can never have. And every time I got pregnant, the doctor's like, I don't know how. There's no way. Nope. It's a miracle that you're pregnant. Yeah, it is, because God blessed me. God can do anything, and I'm a full believer of that. I am a pastor's wife. My husband is a pastor. I'm a pastor's wife. Like I said, I have 6 children. We've been married 25 years. It's my first marriage and only marriage. Same for my husband. He's perfect for me. He's absolutely what God intended for me. And I love what I do. I love my life. I've never done drugs. I'm not on any medications for depression. I don't take Xanax. I don't drink. I've never drunk. I'm not an alcoholic. And a lot of people don't understand, how can you go through so much growing up and not be scarred for life? Oh, I'm scarred. But here's the thing. I am not going to allow my abusers to have power over my life today. I'm not. I am not going to allow them to be in my bedroom and keep me from having fun with my husband. I'm not going to let them control what I do with my children. I'm not going to let them control what I do in my life. Because if I do, I give the power back over to them. And I teach people, take your power back. Okay? With God's help, it's not easy. It's not easy. And you have to train your brain to think. Okay? But I don't allow my abusers to have 1 inch of power over my life. Do I suffer sometimes from night terrors? Absolutely. Why? Because it's my brain, when I go to sleep, that can't think past the emotion. I still got emotion. You saw it the last 2 videos. I still am scarred by what they've done. Trust me, I am. But the thing is, I don't let them have not 1 ounce of power in my life today. I rebuke it. The pain, the anguish that they have caused. I use that pain and anguish to have the knowledge
to help these other children. I believe I have a special, not a gift, I wouldn't call it a gift, but a special insight in these children's lives that nobody else may have because of what I have suffered, from what I have experienced. I know it. Like I said, you live and breathe it, you know it. You absolutely know it. And you don't have to have them say it. So, help me, please. I'm starting my new business. It's still Lucinda Grace Pennington LLC, counseling and consulting services and advocate for families. They're not going to shut me up. And there's some parents that can't pay me because they're struggling. They're poor. They love to take the children from the poor. Okay? They just love to do that. And they can't afford my services. And it's not much. I don't charge much. But I do have to put food on my table. And I do have to feed my children. And I do have to take care of my household. And so help me, people. Pray for me. Let me help you. Let me pray for you. And like I said, there's more to my story. But I think I've really upset some people with sharing a little too much. And I apologize for that. But I'm not going to apologize for sharing my story. It needs to be shared. I know people don't want to hear the horrors of foster care. And is every foster home that way? Absolutely not. Okay? I've seen beautiful foster homes where they take care and love their children. Okay? So, I absolutely love foster children. I wish I could be a foster parent myself, but they won't let me because my husband's 17 years older than me, which is ridiculous. But it doesn't matter. God is in control. He knows He has a special purpose for me, whatever that purpose might be. And so, again, pray for me. And I think I might start doing some lives where people can ask me questions. So let me know what you guys think and let me help. All right, God bless you guys, and you guys have a great day.